Now they're saying this new strand is even more infected than
Question: are you allowed to mix children from different families?
No, officially
not. But for childcare, yeah, you mix the schemes. You mix
Not childcare. She's full.
in the class, not
You
allowed.
know what? You know the
latest
latest
registered.
mental thing is.
Is she
Jewish
registered?
sent out text
Yes, I
today.
know. It's not heavy. Just
If you go into Chick-fil-A, you go to South
for 10 days. I know a lot of people were.
That's true. It's very true.
You
know what's the biggest joke? 90% of the people on the
How many
phone
classes
way
of
it
Jewish
goes.
days have been out of school already? How many classes have been out of school in Jewish days? 3, 4, maybe. Jewish days.
What I want to know is, I'm really sure if we're asking this,
No such thing as it.
You're late. It's not for B'Tzalel.
Huh?
It's not. Yeah, I don't think you've got the right Gemara, but maybe you do.
what I want to know
Doesn't
is,
matter.
whoever gets it,
That's also not the right one. That's Lebray's. It's inside the case. It doesn't matter.
It's still there.
And you put it on top of the siddur. I don't know if you put them on top of the siddur.
Is that probably good? How close do you sit?
No, it's not just. It's just goes on top of it. It's not just a hummus.
I don't know. I get
Does
nervous.
it exist or not?
You're all, by the way, you're being recorded for posterity and more than on
I
camera.
haven't had it yet.
I didn't ask if you had it. Have you ever lost a chain of sleep?
Jack moisture with it. Just enjoy it.
Probably every year when I get cold.
No, it's different.
We're up to the mission on the Flamadom with base. Got a lot to cover.
No, finish. I came to it.
You came too late.
No, it's kosher mentals. I'm very sure.
By the way, I think that a lot of people want to go on holidays. Anybody who comes to Shiur nowadays should get paid 100 times as much. Yes, from Sarago, obviously gets worse, get paid in this one.
Hot water.
Cups of hot water.
Do you know
Is anyone going
to the
nowhere?
kids? Everyone just
Wait 2 weeks ago.
What happened to the coat?
They're from Sarago.
Sure, what happened to the
It's a huge Kiddush Hashem. It's an unbelievable thing. The people,
We're looking for some.
they're from Sarago. Okay, we're starting a new topic, one which requires like concentration, undivided attention. That's right. We're up to the Mishnah Lamed Amud Beis. Nochri shehilvois Yisrael chemtzoi. A goy lends a yid money, and the yid promises his chametz. Acha Pesach mutar ba'ano, af Pesach mutar ba'ano. V'yisol shehilvois nochri al chemtzoi. A yid lends a goy money on chemtzoi. Acha Pesach asa ba'ano. This Mishnah is a continuation of the previous Mishnah that chametz is asa ba'ano if it belongs to a yid. It is mutar ba'ano if it belongs to a goy. So if you've got chametz in your house over Pesach and you didn't sell it, you didn't do bittul chametz. Let's say you've got a nice cake and you never sold it, you didn't do bittul nothing. After Pesach, it's asa ba'ano. If there's chametz by your goyish neighbor, then it's mutar ba'ano. That's our Mishnah is a continuation of the previous halacha. It's not according to everybody. Nobody agrees with this halacha, but Mishnah is going according to that man's Dharma. That it depends if the chametz belongs to a yid or a goy, whether it's mutar or asa ba'ano. If it belongs to a yid, Chaim, what's the din? Asa. If it belongs to a goy, sure, then it's mutar. Right? Let's get this clear. If you don't have this clear, we're starting from the aleph base. The aleph base is what? What's the aleph base? If it belongs to a yid, it is asa ba'ano after Pesach. If it belongs to a goy, it is mutar. The Mishnah is going mutar. Now imagine your goy knocks on your door, Chodesh Nisan, 2 weeks before Pesach. He knocks on your door. He says to you, my dear neighbor, will you lend me £100,000? I say, sure, I carry £100,000 in my pocket. You got a goyish neighbor, £100,000 is peanuts for you. You say to him, I'm sorry, but I'd like to have security. I'd have security. So he comes and gives you a bottle of whiskey, an expensive bottle of whiskey, like famous grouse. That's definitely worth £100,000. What?
In a real gold decanter.
Again, he comes to you and gives you. Listen to this, it's a big problem. Imagine, so you've lent him £100,000 and he's giving you a bottle of whiskey as security. What happens, collateral? If he doesn't pay you, let's say he does a runner, or he just can't afford to pay you, what happens to the whiskey? Comes yours. Very good. Oh, because very good. Now he told you he's going to pay you in a month's time, which is Chodesh Iyar. So you don't know yet on Erev Pesach whether it belongs to you or not. What would you say?
It doesn't belong to you.
You say it doesn't belong to you. We're going to discuss this at great length. So I'm happy that you've already made the final conclusion. But let's say he doesn't pay you. So when did it become yours? Is it a mafreya with Chodesh Nisan or is it with Chodesh Iyar?
Why wouldn't it be when it's due?
Okay, we'll see. We'll come to it. I just like to point out to you like this. That if I want to point out a very interesting bi'alacha, Mishnah Bor bi'alacha, shtick for the bi'alacha, a major problem. The Mishnah says, Lamais, not like you, Moshe, I'm very sorry to tell you. The Mishnah says that if a Yid lends money to a Goy, let's look at the second half of the Mishnah. A Yid lends Goy money, and the Goy gives him chametz, a bottle of whiskey or a piece of cake. Then so what's going to happen is, not only is it also bad, he's got mitzvah to get rid of it. So he comes to Erev Pesach, what's he do with the whiskey? Pours it down the sink. Then at the end of the month, the Goy says to him, my darling, I do not have any money to pay you, but you can keep the whiskey. Now what's the Yid ended up with? Nothing out of £100,000. The Mishnah Berurah has got a shtick of how to get around it. Does anybody can think of it? Very interesting.
So it's another guy.
You must remember, nowadays selling is very easy because we've got good contact. Always, you lived in a village with only eating around, etc. Not every go, a sale of a go.
It's liquid.
Okay, I'd say very briefly, I don't want to get off the point of the comment. You go to Beis Din, you say to Beis Din, I forgive the loan. I forgive the loan. If I forgive the loan, the guy doesn't owe me a penny. If he doesn't owe me a penny, who does the chametz belong to? The guy. When the guy comes to pay you, you don't tell him that you forgave the loan in front of Beis Din and you claim from him the entire £100,000. No, because the guy doesn't know.
What's the money when he gives it back to you?
Okay, so it's a matana if you want it. It's okay. It's a complicated sticker. It's very nice to be aloha, very interesting to be aloha. Tough man. Okay, let's get back to it. This is a very complicated. So let's get it. We've got two cases. Both of them are the exact opposite of each other. In one case, the Yid lends the Goy. In the other case, the Goy lends the Yid. In both cases, as security was given chametz, a loaf of bread, a bottle of whiskey was given as security. And the problem is, as Rashi already immediately jumps in and says, we're talking about where the security is being given over to the person's house. That means it's not just the Goy says to you, here's a bottle of whiskey as security for the money. He also says to you, please keep the whiskey in your house, right? So the guy says you can have 400,000. He gives you a bottle of whiskey, and you keep the whiskey in your house. So now it's considered as if you've claimed the chametz already, and therefore it's yours. You've got no choice; you have to get rid of it. Is that clear, Moshe? Exact opposite of what you wanted to say. No, not clear. No, if it's not clear, we can't start. There's no point because the whole Gemara is continuing this again. If a Yid lends money to a Goy, and the Goy says to him, here's chametz as security, and he gives it to him, and he takes it to his house, we consider it as if it belongs to the Yid immediately. And because of that, he must not have it in his home over Pesach. And if he does,
you have it in his home and in
Moshe said, not like you. Moshe said,
can he store it at the guy's house?
oh, we'll see. What would you say? What is a security?
Security is what it is, security. So
No, you could argue, which I would have said logically, I must admit, that security is, if you don't pay me, then I'll get it. But when he doesn't pay, to say that it's already yours before the payment, that's the question. So let's see the Gemara already inside. Itma. Baal Choiv, a person who has a Baal Choiv, Abai Oman and Mafia Goiva, Roman Kanon Abol Goiva. What we've been arguing just now, Abai Rava sat 1,500 years ago, about 1,300 years ago, and argued about it in the Beis Medrash. Meaning, what happened was, let's take a case not of chametz, right? I have my house, I own my house, and I say to you, will you lend me £100? So you say, yes, if you give me a security. What? Joshke. He lived 2,000 years ago, but no, he lived there, we killed him. No. Tanoim. The Gemara tells us Sanhedrin of Yeshua was his Rebbe, and Yeshua once talked about how once they were hosted by a woman who was very, very kind to them, and Yeshua commented about how beautiful she was. Yeshua was annoyed with him and put him in the chayim, and eventually he relented to Yeshua, but he was in the middle of saying Shema, and Yeshua came back, and he couldn't interrupt Shema, and he felt so rejected that he went to set up his own religion. That's right, yes. But getting back, it's about Baal Choiv, Abai Mafia Goiva, Rav and Kanolabo Goiva. Abai says, like you, Yeshua, that from the day that he gets the security, it belongs to him. And Rav says, like you, Moshe, he says, look inside more like Moshe, that what? That's Mekanolabo. From when the debt is paid up, that is when you get it. Now, The Gemara goes through what's the nafkimina. So the Gemara says like this. That means, let's take a case, we stick to one case always. Me and Chaim. I lend Chaim money, and he gives me his house as security. So what happens after he gives me the house as security? He goes and he sells it to somebody else. Everybody agrees that I've got a shibud in it. I have a shibud on the house, and you cannot sell it to anybody else. And you can't even be makdish it to the base of Mikdash. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The hekdesh doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, I have a right over it. The Torah says, Ishki yakdish es beisoy, ma beisoy bil shusoy. It has to be under your domain. It's not under your domain. You can't be makdish it. This is that. We have a Mishnah. The Mishnah there is talking about a person, and the security was only worth 90 money. And the person not only gave a security worth only 90, he went and he was a makdish the entire security. So what's the halacha? The malva is allowed to take the money out of security, the property out of security, and take it home. Only mid the Rabbanon they said that you have to give a token of payment to hekdesh. Does anybody know why you have to give a token payment to hekdesh? Very good. People think that you can just help yourself to items of hekdesh without paying. And the Mishnah says moisif. Why moisif? The Rishonim explain an interesting notion. Moisif meaning that the security was only 90 and the debt was 100, and he defaulted on the debt. So now I'm going to take the security, so he owes me 10. Plus that token payment is added to the debt. So this person, when he eventually does pay me, when Chaim eventually pays me back, he's going to have to pay me the 10 plus the token payment which I gave to Hekdesh because it was his fault. He shouldn't have been makdish. It's slightly different. That's the more Baba Basa that we're scared that people, when they changed in the olden days, coppers were worth less. They would get rusty. Okay, so most of it didn't put as chosmeilu. He pleaded the Zavin Malva Kodesh Malva. Machlekes is when the Malva, I was going to lend the money, and I actually should have said it. Since the time came, he never paid up. That means, if let's say on Chodesh Nisan I lend money to Chaim, he gives me his house, and in the middle of Nisan I makdish the house, and in Iyar, when the time came to pay back, he did not pay me, so he defaulted. Now he defaulted 2 weeks after I was makdish it. According to Abai, the hekdesh is cham. What? So this is the chiddush. This is the chiddush of Abai that it works. Oh, very good. If he does pay, the hekdesh of course doesn't work, because there we look at it as if it was never. Since he paid, it was as if the whole security was not a security at all. Because since he paid it up completely. Yeah, again. Which Chodesh Nisan he gave me the house as security. Which Chodesh Iyar he defaulted. Halfway through I was makdish it, I sold it. And now I changed my mind. It comes to Chodesh Iyar and I actually get in the house. I changed my mind about the sale or the hekdesh. So do we say, look, no, it was, and then put proper hekdesh as a proper sale. Why? Because since in the end he never got paid, so therefore it's a raya that backwards it's already mine. There's a famous of Shimon that discusses this very, very long length because logically it doesn't work. And he says it's considered a long sale. For example, sometimes you have such a thing where I pay now and get the property later, right? And then it's sold with a lot. Change. I don't know. You're right. I never thought about that. Change of completion. When's the kinyan chav? Can you change completion? Can you back out between change and completion?
You'll just lose your deposit.
Can you back out to Pidin Torah or just Pidin to Mechutza? Okay. Mishpah, yeah, but is there Kidin? Is there a star? I don't know. Okay. Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay. The point is, we consider it a long sale. So therefore, I gave you the money. You gave me the house. As a long term, eventually the house is going to be mine. If he would have money, he would clear me out of the money. So Abai and Rava argue like this. Abai says, look at it like this. If he doesn't pay, so the house goes over. So it's a buy from the day one when he gave me the property, that he was giving it to me straight away, and therefore it was always mine. Rava says, no. The proof, says Rava, is that if he wanted to, he could just pay me back the money, and I wouldn't be able to keep the property. So therefore it's a raya that is only Mikan Abo and not Mikan Fel. The mice we pass like Rova. We're going to spend now a long time trying to verify is it like a Abai, is it like Rova. Let's get back to Chumash shortly. But now we're discussing Abai Rova. What's the Machlikas Abai Rova? What's the Machlikas Abai Rova? When a person has a mashkin and the person defaults and doesn't pay, do we say that he gets the security from the original time or only from the time of the default? Is that when he gets it? And the Gemara over here goes through a complicated case to try and prove. It says, well, did Rabba say this? We've got a story like this. But also this is an interesting, complicated case. Let's try and get it very clear. You've got Reuven and Shimon. Reuven sells a property to Shimon, a field. Reuven sells a field to Shimon. Now, there's two kinds of sales. There's sales ba'achrayas and sales shaloi ba'achrayas. What's the difference of sales ba'achrayas, shaloi ba'achrayas? Ba'achrayas means he takes a guarantee that if for whatever reason Shimon loses the property, how would Shimon lose a property if Reuven sold it to him? Very good. If Reuven owed money in the past and that Baal Choiv takes it off Shimon, so Shimon's lost the property. So you can sell it ba'achrayas, you can sell it shaloi ba'achrayas. This time Reuven sold it ba'achrayas. Again, Reuven sells a field to Shimon ba'achrayas, meaning that if anybody comes to take the field away from Shimon, Reuven promises to reimburse him. Right? Shimon didn't pay a penny for this sale because he had no money. But he said to Reuven, I owe it to you. I owe you the money. So let's say they agreed on the price, £1,000 for the field. And Reuven promises to guarantee the sale. And Shimon promises to pay him the £1,000, but he doesn't have a penny. So he writes him a debt. I owe you £1,000 for the field which I'm moving into now. Then Reuven went and died. Then Reuven's old previous Baal Choiv comes along to Shimon and says to Shimon, by the way, Reuven owed me money. Since Reuven owed me money, I'm taking the field off you. Shimon doesn't want that. So Shimon, what he does is he takes money out of his own pocket and he pays £1,000 to the Baal Choiv of Reuven in order that he should be able to keep his food. What? He hasn't paid Reuven yet. He hasn't paid Reuven yet. Boy, so we'll come to that in a minute. He hasn't yet paid Reuven. He owes Reuven money. And he gives £1,000 to Reuven's Baal Choiv, the one who's trying to take the field off him. And now he says to the children, look, I have paid you off. They want that he should still pay them the £1,000 because at the end of the day, he promised to pay £1,000 to Reuven. He never paid it. So he says to them, yes, I did. I paid it by paying the Baal Choiv. Says the Gemara, Dinahu, the halacha is, to Osib de Reuven, Momli de Shimon, and non metaltli shavakavon gaboch. He only left possessions. Umetaltli de Yasvi de Baal Choiv le mishtabdi. The halacha is that when a man dies, you only have to pay up the debts if the man leaves property. But if he leaves only possessions, metaltlin, one is not mechuyev to pay. So if a man dies, he leaves behind candlesticks, you do not need to pay off the debt. If he leaves behind the field, you do need to pay off the debt. The children come along to Shimon and they say to Shimon, we want that £1,000 and we want, and you can't fob us off by the fact that you paid the Baal Choiv. Why? What's the cheshbon? Because Reuven only ever had one field. Right? He only ever had one field. So therefore he says to them they say to him like this, that when that Baal Choiv came, if he would have come to us, what would we have said to him? Very good. Why get lost? Because our father never left us any property. Did he leave us any property? No, he had sold every piece of property that he had. So get lost. We don't have to pay. So therefore, you went and paid for a debt which wasn't necessary. Now Rashi asks the question, but there's another debt over here. What's the other debt? Since if the field had been taken away by the Baal Choiv of Reuven, so the guarantee of Reuven is also a form of debt because he promised a guarantee. But for that as well, they can say get lost. Why? Because again, he never left any property. Since Reuven never left any property, the children are not obligated to pay for any debts. Since they're not obligated to pay for any debts, they can say to Shimon, you still owe us that £1,000. That £1,000 is still owed to the family. And the fact that you gave £1,000 to the Baal Chayv was your mistake. You shouldn't have given that money to the Baal Chayv. In fact, had the Baal Chayv come to us, we would have given him a penny. You paid him off because you wanted to, but you paid him off. You can keep the field if you want, but you owe us £1,000. That is the halacha. What?
He pays double.
He pays double. Says the Bava, Bava's got a solution how Shimon can keep on to his property. If Shimon's wise, he says to the children, okay, I owe you £1,000. Why do I owe you £1,000? Because when I bought the property, I promised £1,000. I never paid it. I don't want to pay you cash. I want to pay you property. So he pays them with a piece of property. He pays them property. And then he takes the property back. What's the logic being? He pays them property by saying, first he pays them the property by saying, I owe you £1,000, here's the property. But now that he's paid them the property, he can say to them, well, look, your father did leave you property. If your father left you property, so now you have to pay off his debts. So I want that field back. If he pays them cash, he'll have lost, he'll have paid double for one field. If he pays back with a field, he'll then be able to reclaim it because property is allowed to be reclaimed because of the... Now, there's a very big problem. Let's get this very clear. A man dies without property. Do the children have to pay off his debts? No. What happens if a few months later, somebody pays off a debt to the father with property? Do they now need to pay off the father's debts? Oh, yes. Again, let's get it clear. A man dies, he leaves behind candlesticks, you don't have to pay off his debts. He leaves behind the property, you do have to pay his debts. He didn't leave behind any properties, but a few months later, somebody came along and said, look, I owed your father money. Here's a property to pay off my father's, the money which I owed your father. Does the money, what's the word for it? Can the Baal Chayv claim that property? Yes. You should be aware that Baal Chayv is allowed to claim any property that ever once belonged to somebody. So I once owned a property in Kiryat Sefer, tiny deer in Kiryat Sefer. I sold it. Yeah, I'm a very wealthy person. What happened was, it's interesting. I was once sitting by a Talmid Chacham, and he said to me, are you aware of the fact that if you die or divorce your wife can go back to that property and say, I want it. I want it. Obviously, I was saying if I can't pay off the ksuba any other way. Because she's the first Baal Chayv that I have. What? That's right. That's right.
Maybe the person you bought it from, where you bought it from.
Why?
Because a Baal Chayv is always allowed to claim back to any property that originally owned. Okay, just say just
Did
a
you
halach.
learn it from an adult?
Well,
Yes.
if you sell
But no, but it belonged to the property builders that bought it.
If you sold something to somebody
Any
10
property.
years ago,
That's right. But only if the debt came first. I married my wife before I bought the property. Anyway, comes out like this. Interesting halacha. But Maisa comes out like this. Says Rav Nachman that if the children get a property as payment for the debt, then now the other Baal Chayv is allowed to claim it. So says Rav, what they should do is give back the Shimon should pay back with property and then reclaim it. Says the Gemara. If it's like a Baal Mafia Gover, Amotulachi, therefore, Amotu means therefore. Motilachi, therefore, Chosav Gover is Samahen. Think about the government. It's as if they got it in the lifetime of the father. It's as if the children bought property afterwards. If a children buy property after the father died, does that become a shumah to the Baal Chayv? Of course not. So if Shimon gives back a property, it should be like a property with b'shmut Baal Chayv afterwards. That's what Shani Hossam. We're going to see a principle for Avnosim, that if A owes B and B owes C, then A owes C. That is a principle. And it goes on. And therefore, when a person is owed something, all the people that owe to him are all considered to be owed directly. In this very peculiar case, Shimon can say to the children like this: your father owed me. How did he owe me? Because of the fact that he took the property off me, so therefore he owed me because he says of a guarantee. So your father owed me. Not only your father owed me, but I owed your father because I bought the land and I never paid it to him. So not only does your father owe me, but I owe your father who owes me. Therefore, I owe myself. So therefore, this property is meshubad to me, and that is why I'm allowed to keep this property. It's a complicated case. Rashi says you could say like this. Imagine it would be a third party. What would you say? That just like that third party is entitled to claim, if A, it makes sense that if A owes B and B owes C, that A can go to C directly to claim. So too, Shimon can say, I owe Reuven, but Reuven owes me. So therefore, in fact, I actually owe myself. So therefore, I'm allowed to have this property. There's a shibud already on my property from myself. And if I give back property, it's not like a new property, but rather it's like the property which was originally owed. That means when originally I bought the property was meshubad to your father because I haven't paid him yet, and your father was meshubad to me because of the fact that he gave me a guarantee, and therefore it's now back meshubad to me. So again, the Tanya of Nosan Eimim Minayin and Noisha Bechaver Mona Bechaver Bechaver Shemutzin Mezem Noisha Nezet Amrim Nosan Asher Osham Loi. You could do Asher Osham Loi. There was one in Torah which I was not involved in. The turn that Bonnie was discussing it a little bit with me. Is that what happened was there was a person who left a tzavo. Tzavo, very briefly, it's interesting in Torah because it was going involved. He wrote a will. He asked the Gosha company to write him the will. They did a mistake. They did not write the will properly, and therefore
according to law,
it wasn't clear. No. They'd done a bad job of it. That means what he clearly wanted, was not written well enough to be considered. Therefore, the son ended up losing money from it. So what he wanted to do was to sue the company that writes the wills, and for whatever reason, they agreed to go to the Manchester based, and even though they were going. Now, what happened was the charity, which he wrote a will to charities as well, were also involved. And what happened was the charity, we said that we're not interested in going to Yiddish charity. We don't want to go to base. We want to go to Gosha courts. Yeah, it is unfortunate. That was quite unfortunate. But what happened was because of Shibuda Dram Nosan, like this, the people of the Gosha company owed Apidin because they had done a mess up of the children, that means they owed the father because he had paid, and he had given a shibud to the charity. So if the base in Paskin that they're allowed to go directly, that means the charity can't take it to another place. That means that case, take it more simply, it's a more complicated case. If I owe Chaim owes Yehuda, and I feel that Yehuda feels that Chaim is difficult to deal with, he wants to take me to the turn, not Chaim. So I can't say to him, you've got nothing to do with me. I owe him. Let him take me to the turn. I don't know Chaim is a gentle person that would do such thing to me. No, there's no such thing. That is part of the Shibuda Duram Nosan. That if a person wants, he can miss out the middleman altogether and claim that I have got a personal taina against you. So if it doesn't care what he thinks, even if let's say Chaim feels bad for you, let's say I owe Chaim. Chaim feels bad for me. He's a gentle person. He says, I'm not going to claim chase after you. But let's say Yehuda can claim. I want to take base. I don't feel such. That is important. Okay, this is how it comes in. So over here as well, it's more less complicated in a way. Is that what happened was Shimon owed Reuven because he had to pay the debt. Reuven owed Shimon because he had the guarantee. So therefore, Shimon was allowed to keep the property. And therefore, even if you say Mikano Lahabo, the Shibud already existed with Chaim. Okay, let's go on because the more thing. The Mishnah discusses now. We had the Machlokes Abai B'Rava. What is Machlokes Abai B'Rava? When the person has collateral, do we go according to the original? Do we go according to the original date when it belongs to the person of the malva, or to the latter date? Right? From our Mishnah, what would you say our Mishnah goes like? Our Mishnah says that if you lend money and you get chometz, you have to destroy it, and the chometz is also bana. So where does it sound more like Abai, more like Rava? The earlier, which is who? Abai says. Because according to Rava, what's the problem with this chametz? What is the debt due to be claimed after Pesach? So the fact that he gave you security in this bottle of whiskey, who cares? Right? Let's get the case very, very clear again. Your next door neighbor comes to Rosh Chodesh Nisan and says, "Can I borrow money for 1 month to Rosh Chodesh Iyar?" So you say to him, "Sure, I want security." He gives you a bottle of whiskey as security. According to Abaya, that the whiskey belongs to straight away, we can understand why the Chometz goes also bad. No, according to Rava, it's only going to become yours by Chedesh. Yeah, who cares? It's most like this. Now, like Abaya, no. That says mutabah. No, why? Because it belongs to the goy. We talk about where you lend into the goy. And Yomi Sukanola Bo Goy V'May mutabah. No. Shusadi Sola V'Koi belongs to the yid. Answers the Gemara as Kinam Kishevinu Etzler. We're talking about a case where you deposited it by the malva. You already gave it to the malva. Now, this answer is still problematic. Just because he gave it to the malva, it's in his house. What difference does it make if it's on his dashboard or my dashboard, and on the sideboard or my sideboard? Why should that make a difference? The more later goes into more length. So the Gemara says, "Lema ketanoi." He saw shuv anochi al chemtzu lacha Pesach inavo b'shuv amer oiva. Rav Machlikas tanoim. When a yid lends a goy money and he gets a chometz for it, is it over or not? My lab, makes sense to say this is the Machlikas. The ma'asov lemafvei goy, ma'asov kanol abo goy. But tisber ema seifa v'nochi shavali yisol al chemtzu lacha Pesach diva koloiva. Everybody agrees that you're over. Why should you say that? We should say that whatever happens by Yisrael lending a goy should be the opposite when the goy lends a yid. Why is it that when the goy lends a yid, does everybody agree that suddenly that you are over? We should say the same shaila should be the opposite way around. Whatever when you lend to a goy and you get chometz, if you say that you're over, so when the goy lends you, you should not be over. And if you say when you lend a goy, you're not over, then when the goy lends you, you are over. It should always be the opposite. Why does the price start off by saying that when a goy lends a yid, so when the yid lends a goy, you are over, but vice versa, then everybody agrees you are over. So the Gemara says over here a whole new cheshbon, and a whole new svar. And where you put it in the goy's house, become give it to Rabbi Yitzchak. The Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, minayin lebal chayv shekene mashkan. How do the bal chayv is a kene mashkan? Shneimar lochot tzedakah. The Torah talks about a case where a person has a security. We talk about, let's say, a security. You've got a special mitzvah. What's the special mitzvah? Every single night, give it to me, and every morning I give it back to you. Right? That is a special mitzvah. Right? So every single night, and the Torah says, "Ulachoti et staka." Ulachoti et staka. Rashi understands what does the word staka usually mean. What's stocking? No, I hear what you're saying. No, Rashi means stocker is when you give something that you own to somebody else, right? If you come collect it by me and I give you back a pound which you lent me, have I given you to stocker? No, I've given back something which belongs to you. It's stocker is when I give something from my pocket to your pocket, something which belongs to me and I give it to you. So if I give my blanket as security to Chaim and he gives it back every night, and the Torah says, "Well, it's stocker," that he's doing a mitzvah of stocker by giving it to me. What does that prove? That he owns it, that Ham owns it. Because if he doesn't own it, if I own it, that's not stocker. No, the fact he's doing a nice thing that he's giving it back to me every night, even though it's security for the loan. But is he doing a mitzvah of stocker by giving it back to me every night? No, because this blanket is mine. Right. Very good. So therefore the point is like this. Why does the Torah call it stocker? Why does the Torah call it stocker? It must be that when I give it to you as a collateral, as a security, it actually belongs to him. So when he gives it back to when he gives it back to me every night, he's actually doing an act of tzedakah. Says the Gemara, even Rava agrees. When did Rava and Abai argue was only when it's not given over to other person's reshus. But when you actually gave it, then everybody agrees that it becomes his. Again, Abai and Rava had an argument. What was the machlokes Abai and Rava? Oh, so now we're retracting. The Gemara changing completely. Look at the top tesis. He goes through this whole chesh, but that's how we change it. Alamdala from base top tesis. Again, we had the machlokes Abai and Rava when the person gives security. Is it going to mafreya or lahabo? Says the Gemara, that whole machlokes is only when you've kept the security at another case. I say to you, will you lend me £1,000? So you say yes on condition that you promised me this bottle of whiskey, but not that I give it to you. But once I've given it to you, everybody agrees that it becomes his. And once it becomes his, so therefore that's now going back to our Mishnah. We can understand the Mishnah very clearly. What's the Mishnah talk about? A yid gets a tzedakah from a yid lends a goy money. So the what happens is the guy gives him a bottle of whiskey. So who does the bottle of whiskey now belong to? The Yid. Therefore, it's no good. But if something around, the guy lends the Yid and he gives the guy. It's also
But
fine.
can you learn this? If you learn through the stock of case, you learn it back to the guy. Is not thing of stock.
Very, very good. The Gemara continues with that question. And in fact, the Gemara says you can't. You hear the argument? This mitzvah of giving back every night, is it true by a goy? No. There's no mitzvah every night. Let's say you lend money to a goy and he gives you his pajamas. You don't have to go every night, knock on his door and give him his pajamas back. No, you keep them. Why? The Torah mitzvah by you is not by a goy. So therefore, maybe when you get a mashkin from a goy who says that we have the same principles, the Gemara goes with that, mamish like this. The Gemara says like this. I just want to point out very briefly that Tosfos in Kiddushin is very upset with this Rashi. And Tosfos in Kiddushin says that the stock over here is referring to something else completely. The stock over here is the fact that you're bothering every night to pick it up, get it back. And therefore there's no raya whatsoever. He doesn't like Rashi Shat completely. It's a chesed, the fact that, no, because at the end of the day, it's a big pain in the neck. In fact, Chazal say every day, that we give back on the shamas, we do the same, that Shmuel has to give back to us every night. Tosfos is a very interesting svara. I saw many people discussing this based on that Tosfos says, what is the raya? He says the raya is like this, because the Pasuk says, very strange Tosfos, I shouldn't say strange, it's high. Tosfos says the Pasuk carries on, that the person that blesses them, when you give back the blanket every night, I bless you. Now, are you allowed to bless somebody that lends you money every day? Very good, Vivis. You're not allowed to. So therefore, how can you do it? The answer must be that since the blanket belongs to you and you're giving it to me, so therefore it's not Vivis because I'm thanking you for the use of the blanket. If it would not be for the fact that the blanket belongs to you, so therefore I'd be over on Vivis. This is Tosfos and Kiddushin of this. Okay. So the Gemara says like this. Tanakam Sovani Mili Somi, so like you just said, a Yid from a Yid. Who the coin of Belachati at Stockholm is someone Nochile Kani. Ramir Sama Kavachim, Yisami Sol Kani, Yisami Nochile Kol Shekain, of course it's kind of it. Ava Nochi, Silver, Sisol Alchem Sachape, Sartiva Kul Uva, Osvani Son Nochile Kani. That means when a Yid lends a goy money and a goy gives him chomet, that's a machlokas whether we say the Yid is kohen or not, do we say Lechati at Stock or not? But when a goy lends a Yid money, then everybody agrees that the Yid does not give it to the goy, because then the goy doesn't deserve to be kohen of it. That means we're always, so if like this, it comes out, legabe chomet, it's a chumma, generally it's a kula, meaning, generally by a mashkan we say that a Yid acquires things the goy doesn't. So if I give a mashkan to a goy, it's not his, it's still mine. If a mashkan gives it to a goy, gives a mashkan to me, then it is mine, because the Yid always acquires things more. But legabe chometz comes out a problem. If I give a mashkin to a goy, so then what happens is it's still mine. So if I still got the problem of chometz, fade the gebod, is that true? In our Mishnah, it's not like that. Nay, nami devinu etzto. Even if you gave it to the goy, almost nochim yisol kon. When the person says from now, everybody agrees that he's kohen mashkin. That means we've got now three different topics in this kind of typical dirshu kind of question. If a person gives security, when does it belong to the malva? From when? So the answer most people I would say no. It depends. If you say ma'achshav, everybody agrees it comes from now. If he gave it to him, then also it is immediate because the chotzi had stopped. If he didn't give it to him and he didn't say from now, that's machlik sabar. And even then, machlik sabar would only be a yid from a yid. But a yid from a, sorry, but no, when you give it to a mashkan, sorry, not machlik sabar. When you give it as a mashkan, that's still a machlikas. It's only by yid to yid, not yid to a good. Says the Gemara, not temu the shoneli benechtam machshav benechtam machshav. Where do we see there's a difference between when you say machshav and you don't say machshav? The Tanya, nochi sheherin pas puni. Puni is a very big oven. I just want to point out because it comes out a lot in Rechas Reichel or Zeah. We talk about the issue of smell or sweat. The Mechaber talks about big ovens and small ovens. In the olden days, most people used small ovens. The way they used to work was, it looked a little bit like a pot, and it would have a hollow. There was no bottom to it. And you put a fire inside it, and you would put bread either on the walls of the oven, and that's how you put your bread. The breads were never big. What? I think so. I'm not sure. I don't understand. I've heard such thing. Pasponi is a big oven. A big oven nowadays, it's got doors to the oven, and you can't move them around with you, and you put a slab bread inside. But emes, that makes no difference if it's a big bread or small bread. Rashi just says the Bible talk about pasponi because most people, for security, will not rely on a small piece of bread. They want a big piece of bread. So we talk about a big oven, pasponi. The Mechaber there writes that our ovens are all considered big because all our ovens, the edges on the side, the old the ovens, the heat was much more intense and the smell and the sweat would be much more absorbed. Nowadays, it's not the same. Okay, so pasponi, Italy, so ain't over. That it is yours over. So going back very briefly to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says it makes a difference who lends who. The answer is our Mishnah is talking about in the Sefer, we're talking about where he said Ma'achshav, and therefore since he said Ma'achshav, so therefore the Yid now belongs to them, owns the Mashkan, and therefore it's also Bano. In the ratio we're talking about where the Yid gave the Goy the Mashkan, and since he said Ma'achshav, so therefore it is Mutabano. Right. And the Brisa previously was not to Ma'achshav. And if the Brisa previously said that when the Yid gives a mashkan to a goy, everybody agrees to you, or even bali or bali. Why? Because since a goy is not kohen a mashkan, so therefore it belongs to you. Actually, when a goy lends a Yid, so Mashiach came when a Yid lends a goy, it's a machlikas, because that's a machlikas, is a Yid kohen from a goy or not. So we're talking about a slightly different topic. Chanul shel Yisrael, Umunai shel Yisrael. Go Yiddish shop and Yiddish stock, let's say Havers, where you've got a Yiddish shop with lots of Yiddish products, but a lot of kosher workers, let's say Havers would have only going working there. Then why? Because we are why? We assume that the chametz is there belongs to either the owners or to the stock. We do even though workers do sometimes bring chametz in, we're more assuming that it belongs to the owners or to the stock than to the workers that come there. But other around, so if you ever go to a shop, let's say you come out of the shop, you still find some chametz, right? Do you have to be chosher? Let's say you'd have a Tesco on the village, where it's, what's the word for it, in Shittim Hill? Well, let's say you'd assume that nearly everybody around is Yidden, and then you find chametz after Pesach, you don't have to be chosher from a Yid. Because at the end of the day, we go after the owner of the shop and the stock of the shop, not the people that come to visiting the shop. New Mishnah. Chametz that fell on it, a ruin, it's as if it's been destroyed. Since it's been mavor, it's as if you've got no, it's considered, you don't have to get rid of it, you don't have to undo the ruins. It has to be deep enough that a dog can't get to it. Rashi on Daf Ches says that Shimon Gamliel is not arguing, Shimon Gamliel is explaining. So it's not machlokas. Everybody agrees that it has to be deep enough that the dog can't get it. You still have to do bittul. Why do you have to do bittul? Oh, case on Pesach, you undo the ruin, and then you come to Tano, how far does a dog dig? 3 tvachim, about 30 centimeters. The halacha is money only has shmir by property, in ground. That means like this. If I say to you, do you mind looking after some money for me? And you put it in your cupboard and it gets stolen, what's the halacha? You're chayav. Even if you're shemechinam. Why? It's negligent. Because there's only one place to keep money secure. Where's that? In the ground. It's a very, very important halacha.
Nowadays, a safe good enough.
What?
A safe nowadays would be good enough.
So, yeah, I assume. It's probably supposed to the car. It's very interesting halacha if you're not aware, but they say I look after something. I've got a minute. I'll tell you the story. It came up in the Sefer base, and it was a shocking story. Always very, very upset me. That somebody owed somebody 12,000 shekel. I remember the exact sum. It was a very upsetting story. 12,000 shekel. Right? So what happened was, he was in a rush to give it to him. So he saw the person's wife picking up her children from playgroup. Hundreds of women. He sees the wife, says, here's an envelope. This is money, give it to your husband. What did she do with it? She put it in the hood of the buggy. And then came out. She didn't know it was 12,000 shekels. She thought it was like somebody giving money to us. She thought it was like 50 shekels, 100 shekels. It was gone. Whose responsibility? So she said, look, you told me it's 12,000 shekel, I would have looked after it. She's lost it. Yeah, no. The fact is, she said, the point is she was negligent. You have to look at that's not looking after money. The fact that she had no idea what should be given, there's no difference. I have no idea. Yeah, the what? What do you say? It's £2,000, but okay. Let's just say to Galocha that after the Rabbi Chaim Kafir used to say that people say we look after something. Say sure, no problem. That's no problem. Shmiur as halachas. Even if yes, there's such thing. Yes, that is true. Again, except for Shmiur Kaka, be b'non shleish tvachim. No, you have to take 3 tvachim in the ground. Amalei hachal shmeicha, because chametz has a smell. B'non shleish tvachim. Hasam shmeich suyam eino. It just needs to come from the eye. V'lo boish lo yishav. So how much do you need? On my rafim ba'apopim mesicha tefach. You only need a tefach. Okay. So therefore, what? Oh, so there's a few halachas what to say. One is there's a big machlokes showing in the Gabi. What's this din of koine mashkan? We said that Baal Chayv is koine mashkan. For example, if Chaim lends me money, I give him a blanket. Say it belongs to him. The Gabi, what does it belong to him? In what way does it belong to him? What? No, that is b'chayv because the Torah says you don't need to be yitzchak to mechadish that. No, Yitzchak says it belongs to him. In one way, does it belong to him? It belongs to the Malva. So Rashi says that what happens is that he's chayv b'oinsin. What do you say? No, Rashi says that he's chayv b'oinsin, right? And look at Rashi if you're interested. That it comes out that the Malva loses from it. Think about it. The Malva loses out of it. Again, if I give you a security, what status do you have over the security? According to Rashi, you don't even have Shemechnish as a shirt. You've got the worst. It becomes yours completely, and therefore you're B'chabos. Tosfos argues. Tosfos says no, you're only a Shem Masachar. And the Gabi Kinyas Mashkin is a Gabi. There's no problem of ribis. That is what Tosfos shitta. Okay, we'll stop here. Very good. Okay, Atzlacha. We start from Mishnah tomorrow. Very good. Okay. Good night, Ian. Good night, Yehuda. Good.